What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. It is a Victory Monday. A Victory Monday we weren't expecting on Saturday for most of the night, but ultimately the Canes coming through. Amazing experience out in Berkeley. Met a ton of you guys listen to the show. Appreciate all of you who said hi and showed your support for what we're doing here. And glad we got to share such a big win. We'll talk about all of it, what it means going forward, what stood out to us, everything in between. First, I want to talk about some folks that they don't need to come back. They're always there. That's Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733 if you or someone you care about has been in an accident. You could be entitled to significant compensation. Take back control of your life. Anajar and Levine. Pete, hop in.
Good afternoon.
Hey, man, you were holding down the fort. You did that post-game show, Media React. What time was that, at like 3 a.m.?
Yeah, I couldn't really put my words together there. I was obviously exhausted like everyone else was, and I just really couldn't believe what I had just watched. And I never turned the game off. I obviously was awake there. So it was just me trying to process what I had just seen. And the overriding theme as I reflected and went back and rewatched the game and all that is just how the team didn't quit, man. It was a very weird game. Just looking at the numbers, Mendoza had only 11 passes completed in the game, had 280 plus yards, and then obviously the pick six as well. They ran for 70 something yards. So but then you think about it and it's like every time they had the ball, it felt like they were scoring until the end of the game there, obviously. So very weird game, but the no fight, no quit from this team, as Mario Cristobal said immediately after the game. And that's now 2 weeks in a row that we've seen this. Ton of things to clean up. Nowhere near perfect performance. You had a great post on CanesInSight. If you guys have not seen that, D puts a lot of his thoughts into words. Obviously, you were out there, D. But yeah, man, the ability for this team to just keep fighting. It's a little cliche, but it's true. And it has won them the game the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and then the heart rate of Cam Ward. You know, I was with my kids, my family. Great section. We're going to shout out to Brandon, everybody that was in that section. But I was trying to model different behavior than I've shown in the past. I've been always up and down as a fan. I go crazy when we're doing good or it's a bad call. And now I got kids. I got to show them the right way to act. So I've been trying to be calm. Last week, Virginia Tech, I was trying to be zen throughout everything that happened with the instant replay and everything else. Same thing today. I mean, with that comeback, just trying to stay calm for my kids. But more importantly than how the fans are acting, Cam Ward, he really exudes that demeanor, and that he looked, if you just cut up film of him when we were down 35-10, it looks exactly the same as it did on the first drive of the game. He really acts the same way the whole time. And I think that is something that's fueling this comeback, because yes, you want that fiery leader who gets everybody going. But at the same time, when things aren't going well, sometimes it's, you don't want to be so hot and cold. You want to act like it's one drive at a time. And, that's a cliche everybody says. But when you act the same way on every drive, it carries more meaning. And, of course, he performed in a way that backed that up. I saw Kevin Clark tweeted that Cam Ward had 277 yards alone in the fourth quarter, which is more than any players had since 2017. So we're getting kind of used to these numbers. I saw he was the AP National Player of the Week. It didn't even feel like he had a particularly great game compared to what he's been doing all season. But, of course, when you look at the numbers, see what he's doing nationally, first in most of the major passing metrics. There's a special player with a special demeanor. I think that's why you're seeing the games that you've seen the last 2 weeks.
And you're seeing it here in the clips that I'm showing that Jordan Reed had here of the All-22, checking a lot of different things at the line. I mean, a lot of this was him seeing what the Cal defense was lining up in and then going out there and making the play based on that. And someone that we talked to also said the same thing, who has coached at a high level collegially. So I think that was very interesting to see how he took things into his own hands there. Of course, we have to talk about a couple bad plays that he made, that interception floating backwards, the pick six that, across his body throw. And we saw some of these things come into play against Virginia Tech as well. To me, you're going to have to take some of that bad with the good that Cam Ward also brings to the table. But of course, you would like to see him clean that up a bit.
Yeah, that's something that you heard Cristobal talk about, is it's hard to coach out of him what he is and the plays he makes, because you have to trust him as a decision maker and then take everything that comes with it. Because when you start trying to chill him a little bit, you lose all the great things he does. So we just got to take the good with the bad. Obviously, there's more good with bad. You hope he can rein in a little bit. You saw Patrick Mahomes when he was coming out of Texas Tech. Again, everybody remembers Patrick Mahomes now as the best player in the world, which he is currently. But when Patrick Mahomes was coming out, all the criticisms from scouts were, this guy makes too many hero ball plays. He can't get away with it in the NFL, the stuff he's doing. And that's why Mitchell Trubisky went way ahead of Patrick Mahomes. From all the experts, the people that know more about evaluation than anybody, Trubisky went ahead of Patrick Mahomes, a true junior Trubisky. It wasn't even an age thing. So the point is, these guys can grow, and at the same time, they have an innate playmaker instinct that's hard to totally inhibit. So it's a balance. And I think Ward is finding that balance. And we'll see as the season goes on, the competition gets tougher defensively, how that goes. But Cal's a very good defense. They're not loaded with NFL players, but they're very disciplined, very well coached by Justin Wilcox, ranked high in many major metrics before this game. And Ward completely put it on him, was just unreal when it comes to that fourth quarter and really the whole comeback. You were showing the clips from Jordan Reed of Ward pointing things out and doing all these things pre-snap. I think we talked about this a little bit with our buddy who coached college. He's doing a lot more in the huddle, whereas you compare him to like a TVD, who I've been saying the biggest difference between TVD and Cam Ward is IQ. It's just different caliber of thinker on the field. I think that's why you saw TVD do much better with a no huddle, just go rip it. Whereas Cam Ward, the more time he has to process things, the more he can hurt you, because he is a high IQ player and is also our Beacon Adjusters player of the game. Try to think of someone else to be the Beacon Adjusters player of the game. It was very difficult. Cam Ward, when you're the AP National Player of the Week, you got to be the Beacon Adjusters player of the game. If your property has been affected by Hurricane Helene, Beacon Adjustors Group is here to help. With years of experience handling storm-related damage, we work tirelessly to ensure you get the compensation you deserve. From assessment to settlement, our team of trusted experts will guide you every step of the way. Don't face the aftermath alone. Let Beacon Adjustors Group restore your peace of mind. Call us today, and it's beaconadjusters.com. Obviously, praying for all those in the line of Hurricane Milton, hoping that takes a turn for the better. Tough late hurricane season we're having here in terms of weather. So again, I know we have a lot of Canes fans in that area. Was just in there for the USF game. Beautiful area. Hoping everybody gets through as well as possible. Pete, anything else you want to add on Cam Ward?
Well, I was going to kind of shift gears to the run game a bit. And obviously that's been a big topic of discussion. 138 yards the other day on the ground. Mark Fletcher was probably the most effective back. Damian Martinez had some really good moments as well, especially on that big 20-yard reception to set Miami up for the touchdown there on the last drive. But your thoughts? I mean, 4.2 yards a carry. Cam Ward also had a couple nice scrambles out of the pocket, including that touchdown to get them within a score there. But your thoughts on how things have looked the last few weeks here. And look, we haven't wanted to jump to any conclusions on the run game, but it's also interesting to see some of the trends that have emerged.
Yeah, I think the running game was on track to have a really, really big game. You saw Cal come out, park those safeties deep, say, we're going to force Cam Ward to make a mistake throwing the ball and being patient, and we're going to, force the Miami to run the ball. Different than previous teams, which really wanted to stop the run first. So this was a shift. And Miami came out and they ran the ball effectively. You saw Mark Fletcher just completely pulverize Cal's defense on that touchdown drive, the second drive of the game. So I'm heading that direction. I think what happened is Cal made a lot of explosive plays on offense, and we'll talk about that. That to me is a story of this game when we get to the defensive side of the ball. But from Cal's perspective, they made a lot of explosive plays, which they hadn't made all year. This was not an explosive Cal team, and they made a lot of explosive plays. So at that point, I think the game plan kind of shifted. The game flow changed, and you couldn't run the ball and have as much patience as you wanted controlling the game that way, because you had to come back and you had to keep up with Cal. So we didn't see the full running game. I think it showed progress. I thought Damian Martinez, actually, when I went back and watched, he did a nice job, really helped in the receiving game. Obviously, the last catch was a huge one. had a really nice third down where he got hit in the backfield, was able to come forward and make a couple extra yards to get the first down. I think in general, Pete, we talked about it before the season. He's shifting from standing right next to Cam Ward and getting the ball and having to make someone miss, as opposed to that running start that he had a lot of the times playing downhill at Oregon State. Maybe in the bye week, we see some of that get increased emphasis, especially with you're already seeing Cam Ward under center in deep red zone with Elijah Lofton a fullback. I'd love to see a little more of that. When I watched the NFL this past Sunday, I saw a ton more fullback use than I've ever seen from teams like the Niners, the Dolphins, the Ravens. Yesterday, the Cowboys had a fullback on that game-winning drive. So you're seeing more fullbacks, and Elijah Lofton is such a special player who can run the ball like a halfback, catch it like a wide receiver, and of course, give you the normal fullback things and a 240-pound body with physicality and strength. I'd like to see him use more, period, and possibly use as a way to get Damian Martinez going downhill in a more familiar running style.
Yeah, and Lofton had that big catch, 24-yard catch up the middle, and held on to it, took a nice hit there. So would like to see him get involved in the passing game more and in the running game as well. So we know what he can do as a blocker. We've seen it early on already. Now looking at some of the guys that Cam is distributing the ball to, Restrepo, huge game for him, has that 77-yard reception on the last drive there that really set Miami up and made things, I don't want to say easy, but it takes away the need to really build up a big drive there. So huge play from him. Isaiah Horton had some big receptions as well. Unfortunately, had pretty stupid penalty late in the game that almost cost them. And then Elijah Arroyo, who has been one of the most consistent players on this team all year.
Yeah, I mean, Riley Williams doing a great job inline blocking as well. He got a lot more snaps than he has in the past. At least it looked like that on film or seeing it live. I know Trenton Breach just put up a snap count article on CanesInSight. Haven't got a chance to read it yet. 7 million posts and counting. Sign up for free. But yeah, Restrepo, look, we had the big argument on Wednesday with Mike Ryan. He'll be back this Wednesday as well. Every Wednesday, we had the big argument about who's the best receiver in the ACC. He said Concepcion is having offensive issues, but he's still the best guy. Obviously, Concepcion, dynamic player, awesome player. But to me, the guy's Xavier Restrepo, man. I mean, you saw it, 160-plus yards, multiple fourth downs. Of course, the big catch to win the game, basically going 70-plus yards. Nobody's better right now. Getting open, catching the ball in traffic, running after the catch like a running back. I mean, this is just a special, special player. And look, this year, there's a class of player I like to call just aliens, different planet guys, which is Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, Ashton Jeanty, Travis Hunter. Those are, I mean, I'm watching college football for more than 30 years. Those are probably four of the best players I've ever seen in my life in college. Those four, Pete, I don't know if you agree with that. I mean, those four, there's always great players every year, but those four to me seem like the Adrian Peterson class.
Cam Newton.
Right. Just a different, the word generational is used probably too often, but these are not every year players. These are every many year type of players, and they're all here at the same time. Of course, some are freshmen, some are draft eligible, but those four to me are like a class above anybody. Of course, those two receivers, different planet, and Travis Hunter, whatever you want to call him. In the human category, I'm not sure there's a better receiver than Xavier Restrepo. Remove the aliens. I'm not sure there's a better receiver than Xavier Restrepo this year in the country. Statistically, he's right up there. McMillan in Arizona is obviously real good. But, man, this guy just does so much for the team. He's a great blocker as well. And we don't pay attention to receivers blocking, but look in the pros. Look at Sean McVay and what the LA Rams have done over the years with their receivers being part of the running game and part of the horizontal passing game. Restrepo makes a difference there. And then as a receiver, he's as productive as anybody.
Yeah, agreed 100%. And I mean, that relationship, the communication that him and Cam Ward have out there on that fourth down reception, that, such a timing thing between both of those guys. He was able to sit between three defenders there. Great throw as well. And then again, X just knows what he has to do on the play, catches it, falls right down, gets the first down, keeps the chains moving, right? So, and then almost scored on that 77-yard touchdown as well. Sam Brown got out in front of him a little bit. It was probably better that could take a little bit of time off the clock there, because that last drive for Cal, they just had to throw it. If you give them a minute and a half, minute plus there, you can probably do a little bit more, use a little bit more of the field. And they only needed a field goal, right? So in the end of the day, that was probably the best thing to do there. But yeah, man, really impressive performance by him. And now 9 100-yard receiving games in his career. So that's most all time at Miami. And obviously there's some longevity involved, but that's just pure greatness as well. So Xavier Restrepo continuing to put his name in the record books.
Isaiah Horton as well, with some tough catches, both in the red zone on fourth down as well. He had a big one. People who listen to this podcast, we have so many regular listeners that listen every day. I met a bunch of you guys out in Berkeley. Again, can't shout out everybody, but really appreciate each and every one of you. We have a lot of regular listeners. Let me know in the comments if I'm just rewriting history, but I'm pretty sure that since spring, the guys we've been talking about is getting it done consistently on Green Tree. Restrepo, we know how I feel about him. Isaiah Horton and Arroyo. Those are the guys that clearly worked on their bodies in the offseason. They look like grown men. They carry themselves like grown men, and they're consistently making plays on Green Tree with fitness, with competitiveness, with play strength. And those are the guys that when the going gets tough, Cam Ward looks to those three. Number 7, number 2, number 8, consistently. You saw it today, or you saw it on Saturday. I'm sorry. So to me, I think number 1, play strength is extremely underrated in wide receivers. We talk about speed. We talk about athletic ability. We talk about a million things before we talk about play strength. But Pete, look at the best receivers in the NFL, top to bottom. Those guys are all strong. Who's not strong, core, hands, body, that is a top receiver in the NFL? Can you name any? They're all strong.
Yeah, no, I think we had this discussion the other day. It's one of the biggest things you look for in a receiver these days when you're getting drafted. So it's not just a 40-yard dash. It's not just route running, hands, all of those things. But I mean, part of having good hands is playing strong, through contact. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about.
Right. And the guys, they had different speeds. They had different heights. They had different athletic abilities. When you just look at the top receivers in the NFL, but they all had that one attribute. And I think you're seeing some of that play out here in Miami. Look, I pointed out the play where we threw a screen to Sam Brown with Jacoby George blocking, and Jacoby George got knocked into Sam Brown, and it didn't work. And that kind of killed the drive, that negative play. It would have looked a lot different on the other side if you had Horton blocking for Restrepo or Restrepo blocking for Horton. The strength difference is profound. So to me, that's something that we just got to consider more when we're looking at these receivers. A guy like JoJo Trader, people ask why he's not making an impact like a Jeremiah Smith is. I think there's a lot of things at play. Good depth at the position. He had an injury in camp. Jeremiah Smith just being another worldly player that really shouldn't be compared to anybody. But I think one major factor is the body. It's just different body type coming into college from a Jeremiah Smith to a JoJo Trader. So JoJo's going to need that time in the weight room and really focus on that aspect of it to be the receiver that I think we all think he can be and will be. The strength is such a part of it. And that just jumped out to me in this game when I see Horton making contested catches, Restrepo doing what he does every single game, and then, of course, Arroyo with the game-winning touchdown.
Now, one guy who Miami did not have back was Jalen Rivers. Of course, Ruben Bain coming back last week and making an impact there late in the game. But Jalen Rivers, Marquel Bell has been filling in for him. And you said in your post, which I agree with, offensive line is someone who has represented offensive linemen at the NFL level and still do. You can have a flawless game. And I'm not saying Bell had a flawless game, but you can put together pretty much 50 plus perfect snaps and you get beaten one time and everyone thinks you're awful, right? Everyone thinks that just because you get beat for a sack, oh, the guy can't play, he struggled, this, that, and the third. Same thing with a penalty, right? And obviously he was called for a penalty against Virginia Tech, which was a flimsy call there in the first place. But Marquel Bell, I think, has done a better job than what people, at least on social media, have been saying on him on the message boards, things of that nature. But regardless, getting Jalen Rivers will be getting him back will be big for this offensive line.
Yeah. We'll talk about Marquel Bell in a second. While we're on the topic of offensive line, I want to get a quick plug for a new project I've been working on with the University of Miami directly, which is Storm Sessions. It's a podcast where I sit down with student athletes right there in the University of Miami in the official studio and get deep into their background. There he is right there with Cam Ward. This was an awesome episode. Really enjoyed getting deep into Cam Ward's background, where he comes from, his multi-sport background. It was a 30-minute sit down, learned a ton about Cam Ward when he almost quit football, the things that drive him. He was awesome. If you really want to get to know these student athletes, including Cam Ward, Storm Sessions, official University of Miami podcast, like and subscribe. We have Ines Cooper on this Wednesday. We'll be coming every Wednesday with new episodes. And if you want to support us, support the site, support Storm Sessions, again, official University of Miami podcast. Great stuff. I really think if you listen, it's a bye week, right? So it's time to get in depth and to do some of the things that are different than the game to game prep. Listen to this podcast. You'll really appreciate it. He was a little under the weather and a little hoarse, but man, he gave some great answers and some great detail about his background. So Storm Sessions podcast, Ines Cooper coming up this week, Cam Ward already in the can, and a lot more to follow. So want to get that quick plug in. But yeah, to your point, Marquel Bell, I think, is doing a lot better than people give him credit for. He got beat by what's the guy's initials? I always forget. For Virginia Tech, top pass rusher in the country. He's got three names.
JHP or something like
that.
Yeah. Powell Ryland, right?
Right.
Yeah.
APR, right?
Antoine Powell, yeah.
Antoine Powell Ryland. So he beat Bell for a sack on an island. Pass rushers, one of the top sack guys in the nation, beat him. It happens, especially for a player who probably should be redshirting in a perfect world. This past week, number 44, a veteran defensive end for Cal, was able to beat Marquel Bell with a bull rush, get a sack. Okay, not good. Obviously, that gets a lot of attention. But if you watch the other snaps, I mean, this guy was engulfing defensive ends and giving Cam a lot of time. Cam, not only are we one of the better teams in terms of sack percentage nationally, I think we're like in the 20s last time they put the number out, again, without Jalen Rivers. Cam Ward holds the ball probably longer than any quarterback in the country. I mean, he really takes his time because he wants to make big plays and he's capable of doing it. It puts a lot of pressure, obviously, on the offensive line. Marquel Bell in a lot of these reps was just completely taking his man out of the picture, allowing Ward the time to make big plays. Just watch some of his big throws, Cam Ward I'm talking about, and then look at the left tackle and see what he's doing. So this guy who should be redshirting, he's not. He's getting very valuable reps without Jalen Rivers. I think the size stands out. Obviously, this is unique length and body type. I think he moves very, very well for his size. But the IQ that the coaches trust him to go out there and get the job done with a very expensive, very important quarterback lining up in the backfield, I just think that says a lot about this kid, his progression. And even when Rivers comes back, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Marquel Bell in certain sets doing work because he has shown a lot. And I think Miami wants to keep developing this guy because they look at him as a cornerstone player going forward.
Yeah, I've heard that, they look at him now as the sixth offensive lineman without a doubt. And Miami looks at these offensive linemen as weapons in the offense, right? They don't just look at them as static players blocking, right? So I would expect them to get him continued to be rotated in there. And I agree with you, man. He's got such size and movement ability. You're not looking for a pancake every time he's out there. You got to just keep them in front of you. And he's almost swallowing the defender at times. And again, with his length and pretty flexible for his size as well. I think play strength, and we were just talking about the receiver position. That's a big thing in offensive line as well. It's not always stuff in the weight room. So I think that will continue to come for him over the next year or so. But very positive signs overall from him. Stuff to clean up without a doubt, right? With that length, you leave yourself susceptible to some things, but which we've seen, it's come up, right? But I think that's a nice piece for Miami to build on moving forward.
No doubt about it. And the arrow's pointing up. But, the defensive line, obviously, Pete, we got a big piece back with Ruben Bain coming back, getting a sack, tackle for loss. What do you see from Ruben Bain in his first game back?
I mean, look, just to have his presence out there was big. A lot of what Cal has done or what Cal did in the run game and the screen game, it was very well schemed. I would say. I think credit to their offensive coordinator for hitting Miami, on different things where Miami was trying to get aggressive. But to me, it was big that Ruben Bain's best play came at the end of the game there, where you would assume a guy coming back from injury, maybe a little fatigued, may not be firing at his best. That D line was really, really good in those last few series there, and I think having him at the head of it was a big deal. I think he just gives the rest of the guys confidence, because you understand he's going to be taking a lot of eyes away from what you have to do, right? That he's going to be taking a lot of double teams, and just again his sheer power that he plays with is a lot for an opposing line to deal with, and I think wears you down at the end of the game. We saw that. I think hats off to Akeem Mesidor as well. He had some nice pressures late in that game.
Yeah, Ruben Bain would have had another sack too if not for the Tyler Barron face mask.
Mhm.
So the first play when he got that tackle for loss, that was right in front of our section. You could tell his speed and his urgency. It was a wow moment. Say, okay, this guy's back, and then he finished just as strong as he started. So he'll help a lot going forward. People are listening. We're about 26 minutes in, and maybe we did bury the lead a little bit because we've been going kind of position by position. There's big picture on this team. Obviously, the offense is humming. By a lot of metrics, it's the best offense in the country. Yards per play against Division I opponents, FBS opponents, Miami's number one by a good margin. The other teams in the mix, Ohio State, Alabama, Ole Miss, the teams you'd expect to be in that conversation, and Miami's the best. So, and Texas also in that mix. But again, Miami number one. Scoring offense tied with Ohio State, 46 points a game against FBS opponents. So the offense is truly elite at this point. I don't think you can question the offense has been consistent every game. It's been balanced. You haven't seen, we talked about the run game, but is there offensive line? You're getting Jalen Rivers back. All the weapons we've talked about. Of course, Cam Ward, enough has been said about him. Defensively, the story here, the story of this game and the story to me of the whole season has been explosive plays. Miami's 101st in the country in allowing explosive plays. All the other defensive metrics are good. Yards per play, points per game. We're talking about top 30 type defense. But when you add in the explosive plays, you get these shootouts. You saw with Virginia Tech, you saw with Cal, even Florida had the long run. These are not particularly explosive players that are making these explosive plays, and a lot of it is mental breakdowns. Talk about the fake tunnel screen where Deani Hill was playing cover three, bit a little bit. Tight end number 87 got behind him. Mendoza hit him for a long touchdown. The Jaden Knott fourth down where no one picked him up and he went pretty much uncontested for a long touchdown. These are mental mistakes that are setting up these big plays for the Miami Hurricanes defense. And I think that's something that going into the bye week, you hope it cleans up because, look, there's not great athletic talent in the secondary. There's not a lot of first, second, even third day picks in that group. Okay, that's one thing. But when you're having mental mistakes, that's a different issue. You're hoping the bye week can clean it up a little bit. These are smart guys. These secondary guys, these are smart human beings. A lot of them are very academically inclined and have showed football smarts as well, but they've made these big mistakes. I think Guidry needs to tighten that up. Obviously, they're in the bye week, and I'm sure he's focused on that particular aspect, the eye discipline, the communication, the big plays that are correctable, because otherwise, run defense, pass rush, with Ruben Bain coming back, you're looking okay in those areas. It's the big plays that are leading to these shootouts.
Yeah, and look, I agree with you. I'm a big believer in Lance Guidry. I think his adjustments, during these games have been great. But I just wonder if, with such a strong front four, front seven, especially with Kiko's ability to get after the quarterback as well as a blitzer, I would probably think that, especially the way that Guidry calls a lot of these games, is he's an aggressive D coordinator. You put a lot of pressure on your secondary when you're sending pressure from different angles, the way that he likes to do it. I'm of the belief that this Miami defensive line is good enough to win these battles, by themselves. And yes, there's a time and place to send these exotic blitzes, but I think you have the guys up front who can win these pass rush battles, and then you can kind of let the secondary play a little more. I don't want to say freely, but without as much pressure that there's a lot of one-on-ones and zones that you really have to be cognizant of.
Yeah, looking at the rest of the schedule, you're talking about Louisville, and not necessarily in order, but Louisville, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Duke, Wake Forest, Syracuse. There's not a lot of good defense in that crew as far as facing your offense. So if your offense is number one in the country, averaging 46 points per game, 6 games in, I think it's fair to assume that that's going to continue at least through the regular season, barring any kind of injury or something fluky. I think you can count on this offense, now that you've seen them for this amount of time, to consistently put up close to 40 points a game. As crazy as that sounds, that's what they've been to this point. So that should change some of the way you play now that you have more information and a bye week to really sit down and self-scout. I think you're right, Pete. It just seems like we're doing too much. And when you have this many explosive plays against players, this is not Ryan Williams that's making these plays. You know what I mean? This is not Ashton Jeanty making these plays. These are average receivers, average running backs that are making these big plays. You know, Ott's a pretty good back, but that is nothing special about what he did other than having some speed once he got going that made that play. These are mistakes. So that's got to be the focus of the bye week. And if you're really breaking down this team at the midway point, which I'm sure we'll have a long podcast breaking down all the numbers. But bottom line is elite offense, defense is average. Defense is very good in some respects, above average, run defense, pass rush, scoring defense, yards per play, all above average. But the explosive plays, 101st and 40-plus yard plays, that'll kill you. And we saw that almost happen on Saturday.
Yeah, and last week against Virginia Tech, almost 2 weeks ago now, the issue was the tackling more than anything. So it's a different issue that popped up this week. A lot of guys just running free again. I think Cal, they had a bye week of their own. There is now extensive tape out there on Miami. So I think they did a really good job scheming things up. And again, some of the screen plays. Javion Williams had a 56-yard reception as well. Their other running back. I got to give Cal credit, man. We'll talk about Fernando Mendoza now in a minute in a little bit more length, but they've got some talent over there. They got some speed, and you know, you got to give Justin Wilcox credit. That's not an easy job over there at Cal. So, but real quick, D, wanted to talk about our friends at Asset Dash, the best portfolio tracker and rewards program in crypto. You see the QR code up there. You can scan to download the app. And again, you earn additional coins when buying through the app. So you can do everything from tracking your investments, earning rewards, and now buying over 1,000 different cryptocurrencies on Solana natively through the app. Download Asset Dash for all your portfolio tracking needs, cryptos, NFTs, stocks. If you invest in something, Asset Dash supports it. And again, limited time offer only here. Enter the code CANES, all caps, at sign up, and you will receive an upgraded premium Asset Dash Gold membership, free for life. CANES, all caps, at download. So D, Fernando Mendoza, man. I mean, a lot of talk about him heading into this game. The ties between Mario, his dad, who they kept showing in the stands there, and got off to a hot start. Only 11 completions in this game, but if it felt like way more because of what we were just talking about, those big chunk plays. But the execution was there early on. Of course, end of that game, Miami gets up. They had to really throw the ball downfield there at the last drive. Couldn't get anything going. But he showed a lot, man. I think he showed a lot more athleticism than people probably gave him credit for heading into the game, which we said last week. I watched that Auburn game, was making some guys miss in the backfield, extending plays somewhat. Not exactly what Cam Ward does, but doing a lot of things that were impressive. And I think something that if you're Cal, you definitely have something nice to build on with him.
Yeah, every time I talk about Mendoza, people are like, oh, are you just trying to set up a transfer for next year, pushing the Cuban Catholic school agenda? I'm not doing that at all. I have different ideas of where I might go when it comes to the offseason, but just talking about the kid, Pete, you mentioned it. You talked about how he looked against Auburn, more athletic than you expected. He's someone that I highlighted his senior year of high school. He was committed to Yale at the time. And I said, how's this guy not getting FBS attention? He's 6'5", and he's gotten more athletic as time's gone on and put up good numbers, has a good arm, kind of a run-based offense in high school, but you could see the talent, and they won. I think his upside is probably more than I expected going into the game, having watched him. He's 6'5". His arm, he made some big boy throws, especially early on when we were blitzing him. He made some nice, just drive throws with timing and arm strength that I didn't know he had in his bag.
And hitting guys in stride too. Like it's one thing that, yes, the tight end was wide open on that busted coverage. The other one, the deep, I don't know if it was a post, but across the middle of the field deep that set them up early in the game, at the 5-6 yard line there. Like, he was hitting guys in stride with giving them the chance to keep running with it.
Yeah, he made throws, man. And the athleticism, Ruben Bain had him one-on-one, and he made him miss and ran for about 30 yards. That was an eye-opener. Also made Mauanoa miss earlier in the game. So sometimes these tall guys that maybe they bloom later when they get into their body a little bit. They're 6'5", they're lanky. They learn how to use their arm. They get a little stronger. They just get a little more in control of their body, and the athleticism starts to come. I'm not comparing this guy to Tom Brady. Every time I say things like this, people think I'm saying comparisons. But Tom Brady's a guy with a similar body who made much more physical gains later in his career than I think people expected. Mendoza's not going to be that or even close to that. Don't take it that way. But just in terms of being like a late bloomer physically, I could see a situation where if this guy gets a little more weapons to use at Cal or wherever he transfers to, I could see senior year. He's a sophomore now. He's got 2 more years of eligibility. People are saying, right? He's got 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And people are going to be saying, man, this guy's like one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC and potentially even a pro. I could see him. He's not that now, but I could see him developing into that. Of course, the mental game's great. So I was impressed with Mendoza. And in general, I got to plug the agenda. Hispanic players, man, this is a golden age of Hispanic players. You got my guy Diego Pavia out there for Vanderbilt, making a lot of plays, upsetting Clemson. Of course, Mendoza had a great game. Or Damian Martinez, Arroyo, we got those guys. Restrepo, you already know what he can do. We got a few guys out there making plays.
Concepcion.
Yeah. Concepcion. We got to get Ryan Rodriguez back on the offensive line. Jaden Harris had a tough game, but he's he's half Colombian. I think Porter is as well. So Popo Aguirre, see him getting more and more snaps every game. So I got to pump these guys up every chance I get. Golden age of Hispanic players here in 2024.
And D, just wrapping things up in terms of thoughts on the game. One thing you mentioned at the end of your post, which Mario can't be happy about, is the extracurricular penalties. The Horton one, I thought I couldn't tell what happened on the Horton one at first, and they showed the replay, and I was so frustrated watching that one there, and uncharacteristic, as Horton's a guy that you wouldn't expect that from. Obviously made some big plays in the game, but that one was bad. Jacoby George had one too, right? So the tracker there continues to I wonder what the over-under was for him on those penalties before the season. Unfortunately, it's not trending in the right direction there. But yeah, man, just some stuff that really needs to get cleaned up there, because you've escaped the last couple weeks here, but I think Louisville might be a different animal. I think they're a better team than what Miami's faced the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and it's funny with George. He got one against him. He baited Cal into one, but I don't like that trade. You don't know this game situation, so it's not an even deal when you get 15 and you cause 15, because you don't know what time of the game those planters are going to be under. You just got to control yourself. It's not, he's not Dennis Rodman. Don't try to play that role, because that's not him. He needs to just focus on catching the ball. Here, going to get healthy in the offseason, which is going to help him a lot. I think he's been a little nicked up. But yeah, the discipline, Horton, that was a killer that Miami was able to avoid. But that could have been potentially a disastrous play down the stretch with Horton making that kick in a crucial situation. You saw face mask, you saw hands to the face. Just seeing a lot of stuff you don't love. I was, on the last play, there were so many unsportsmanlike. I thought we were going to take the knee in the end zone, but got to clean that up. It's one thing to be chippy, but if you lose that game, all that chippiness looks a lot different than if you win it. So there's a fine line. I think Miami's got to get more discipline than they've shown in the last 2 weeks if they want to beat better teams.
And then, the first Florida game, they didn't really have any issues like that, right? It was a pretty clean game. And early in the season, seemed like it was pretty clean, but last couple of weeks, definitely it's reared its head there a bit.
Yeah. And by the way, with the bye coming up, I thought it's a good time to look at the Miami Hurricane Team Store post of the day. Our friends at Miami Hurricane Team Store, the official shop of University of Miami Athletics. They got the new I'm not as knowledgeable on the shoes as the kids are, but the Miami Adidas Alpha Boost version 2 coming soon. There you see it in the pictures. Pete, is a cool looking shoe.
Yeah, I like them. I like them. I'm critical at times. Of Adidas footwear, but man, these are pretty sleek. They got the Boost is the most comfortable mechanism in all of athletic shoes these days, and I think it's a cool design. So pre-order them now on MiamiHTS.com.
Yeah, link is on the website. Links in the description, and go get it, man. But the post of the day, which was an interesting one, I thought, talked about Mario's record after buys going back to Oregon. So he had, I believe it was 9 games after buys. This is Ghost 2, who's one of the better posters around. He's been posting forever, and he's saying Mario, if I read it right, was 7-0 before he got to UM, and he's now lost 2 after the bye week.
Yep.
So 7-2 after the bye. The ones he's lost at UM, North Carolina the first year, where Miami I thought actually played well against Drake May and company, but they just weren't a very good team at that point. And then the Georgia Tech game last year, which of course was a disaster. Miami didn't look very good, particularly on offense, more so on offense than defense. The turnovers was a story of that game. I don't know how much that had to do with the bye, but Mario generally pretty good out to the bye. I just think it's all about timing. And that Georgia Tech win, you were flying high. You believed all the hype for a week of not playing, and then had that bad performance. This week, Miami's going to have that bye and get a lot of criticism. People are going to be saying they're a fraud. People are going to say they're very vulnerable against Louisville. I think it's, even though they're not coming off a loss, thank goodness, they're going to get some of that criticism during the bye, which should help keep them motivated, as opposed to just feeding them like you saw last year. And more substantively, guys need to get healthy. Elijah Alston, Jalen Rivers, Jacoby George is banged up. All the running backs can use some time. Cam Ward, even though he's generally been well protected, you always like to see him get some rest. This is a group that I think could use the bye physically and then mentally to tighten up the screws when it comes to the secondary communication and those big plays.
Yeah, and we'll get into it over the next week plus here, what possible things we could see, because we understand that a lot of it's going to, and this is what Mario's already said, taking a look at the rotations, the snap numbers, who needs more, and as he said the other day, he doesn't want guys just eating up snaps, that they're out there, they're just not doing much, not making much of an impact on the game. And look, the ball's not always going to go your way if you're a defensive back, or you're not always going to, the ball's not going to always come your way if you're out there as an offensive player, but you need to be part of winning, and you can't be taking away from what's happening. So I'm sure we'll see some minor adjustments when it comes to that stuff. Is this an opportunity now for some young guys, after they take a look at some of this stuff, to get more snaps? We will see. But yeah, I think, like you said, the biggest thing to me is getting healthy. And it's not just, because Mario said it, it's not just the guys that have been on injury reports that have missed games. Guys are beat up at this point of the year. Guys are nicked up. You started the year against Florida. You had obviously a few more games that you go on the road against USF and Tampa, and then you go cross country here. So I know that was a long trip for these guys to get out there a day earlier. Didn't get back until 10:30 the next day. So it's a pretty brutal trip that could knock you out for a couple days there in terms of getting your body firing on all cylinders again. So a lot of rest this week, I'd imagine, and just getting these guys back to where they need to be mentally. Like you said, I think it's a great scenario for Mario to be in, that this team is undefeated, but you still, can deal with a little bit that rat poison, as he likes to call it, and Coach Saban likes to call it, because they haven't had perfect performances. So a lot of teaching moments, but 6-0. What else could you ask for?
And look, Alabama lost to an unranked Vanderbilt team. Tennessee lost to an unranked Arkansas team. Michigan lost to an unranked Washington team. USC lost to an unranked Minnesota team. Missouri got destroyed by a 25th ranked Texas A&M team. This is college football. These things happen. If you're the Miami Hurricanes, you're happy to be on the winning side of the equation. Ole Miss the week before, unranked Kentucky team beat them. This is college football. This is what happens. Miami was able to avoid it. Cal had everything going for him game day. A tremendous start. Miami was able to overcome win the game with a tremendous second half and fourth quarter. That 4 means something now with the way Miami's been playing lately. Just an all-around awesome win, awesome feeling, and excited to catch up on things in this bye. We'll be on every day, probably more than usual, just because there's a lot of stuff we got to break down and get to at the midway point. We'll talk a lot of recruiting as well in these couple weeks, but great recharge for the second half of the season where Miami hopes to make a run for an ACC title and a playoff run.
Go Canes. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel and check out CanesInSight.com, completely free. We will see you guys tomorrow.
Go Canes.
Yeah, this an insight to the Canes, and you know we ain't playing no games. Joaquin said dominate, so that's what we do. Home of the legends and 7th floor crew, down in Miami where hurricanes brew. You here for the rumors, we bring you the news, cause it's all about the you, and nobody do it like CanesInSight. 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 It's CanesInSight.